Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunda Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari. Gopidana Bhava Grivardhari Jaya Grivardhari. Gopidana Bhava Grivardhari Jaya Grivardhari. Yasodanandana Radha-jana-ranjana Jaya Radha-jana-ranjana. Yasodanandana Radha-jana-ranjana Jaya Radha-jana-ranjana. Yasodanandana Radha-jana-ranjana Jaya Radha-jana-ranjana. Yamunatiravarachari Jaya Kunda Bihari. Yamunatiravarachari Jaya Kunda Bihari. Yamunatiravarachari Jaya Kunda Bihari. Radha Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari. Kopidana Ballabha Grivardhari Jaya Grivardhari. Kopidana Ballabha Grivardhari Jaya Grivardhari. Sodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanandana Raja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Ravidakasharya Asadhara Satushi Shiman. His Divine Grace Lacy Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hariva Slava Zabrani Bhaktam Slava Shri Gurui Shri Gurangi. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tenamane Namaste Saraswatundeve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shinivadi Paskyatyade Siddharane. Om Agyanativanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksurum Lilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shigaro Shiyuta Parakamalam Shigaram Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishuvanu Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitinanda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 17, the Lord agrees to become Aditi's son, and we have text number 10 on the... But there's no purports for some of the verses, so we'll just read them. O Unlimited One, if your Lordship is satisfied, one can very easily attain a lifetime, as long as that of Lord Brahma, a body either in the upper, lower, or middle planetary systems. Unlimited material opulence, religion, economic development, and satisfaction of the senses, full transcendental knowledge, and the 8 yoga perfections. What to speak of such petty achievements as conquering one's rivals? Shukadeva Goswami said, O King Parikshit, best of the Bharata dynasty, when the lotus-eyed Lord, the supersoul of all living entities, was thus worshipped by Aditi, he replied as follows. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Mother of the demigods, I have already understood your long-cherished desires. We'll read the Sanskrit for this one. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Deva Matar Bhavatyame Vigyatam Chira Kangshitam Yatsapatnar Rita Shrinam Shavitanam Swadharmataha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Deva Matar Bhavatayame Vigyatam Chira Kangshitam Yasapatnar Rita Shrinam Chavitanam Swadharmataha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Deva Matar Bhavatayame Vigyatam Chira Kangshitam Yatsapatna Rita Srinam Chavitanam Sudamata Bhagavanu Vacha Devamatar Bhavataime Vigatam Chirakankshidam Yatsvapatna Ritas Sritnam Chavitanam Sudamata. Ladies. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Devamatar Bhavatyame Vigatam Chirakangshitam Yatsvapatna Ritasrinam Chavitanam Swadamataha. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Devamatar Bhavatame Vigatam Chirakangshitam Yatsvapatna Ritasrinam Chavitanam Swadamataha. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Deva Matar, O Mother of the demigods, Bhavatya, of you, may by me, Vigyatam, understood, Chirakangshitam, what you have desired for a long time, yet because Sapatnai, by the rivals, Rita Srinam, of your sons, who are bereft of all opulences, Chavitanam, vanquished, Swadhamataha, from their own residential quarters. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Mother of the demigods, I have already understood your long-cherished desires for the welfare of your sons, who have been deprived of all opulences and driven from their residence by their enemies. Purport. Supreme Personality of Godhead being situated in everyone's heart, and especially in the hearts of his devotees, is always ready to help devotees in adversity. Since he knows everything, he knows how things are to be adjusted, and he does the needful to relieve the suffering of his devotee. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Taramane Namaste Sarasatam Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskyadyade Satarane. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Nadate kasichit papam na papam sikritim vivo agyane navritam gyanam tena muyanti jantava. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered by the ignorance which covers their ill knowledge. Or as it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Nigama kalpatarod galitam balam sukhamukhan drava samyutam pibata alyam mahurmahu bhuvika bhavikaha. That oh thoughtful men, relish this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the desire tree of all the Vedic literature. That this desire tree can fulfill all desires, even up to liberation. Nigama kalpatura galitam balam. And it's been relished by Shukadeva Goswami, who's like a parrot. According to parrots, they bite into a fruit, and the fruit is supposed to become more tasteful. So Shukadeva Goswami has repeated the Srimad Bhagavatam and has become even more tasteful. And by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one can fulfill all kinds of desires. Now, there's only one person who's fulfilling our desires, and that's Krishna. Krishna is in everyone's heart, and he knows exactly what we're desiring. And according to what we deserve, Krishna makes arrangements through his either spiritual or his material energy to fulfill our desires. So what we're desiring will determine what our destination is. What we focus on is generally what we're desiring. Just like here, we're trying to focus on Krishna, so the speaker is going to say something about Krishna, hopefully. He's not going to give you the formula of how to make a martini that you have to go somewhere else to find out about. That here we're trying to focus our thoughts about Krishna so that our desires can actually flow towards Krishna. Because there's thinking, there's feeling, and there's willing. So we're not only trying to give some nice thoughts about Krishna, we're trying to inspire a process by which we can actually feel for Krishna. Feel, of course, we may not be overwhelmed with bhava and rolling on, after this class, you're all rolling on the ground in ecstasy. Very unlikely. But at least some positive thought. How to come to the mode of goodness, for instance. For instance, we might become inspired to wash our hands before we take prasadam today. So that means that this class was successful. Because we've come to the mode of goodness, and in the mode of goodness we're free to greater or less extent from anxiety over many things to desire and to lament about. There's so many reasons in the material world to lament. I can give you hundreds of reasons right now why you should be lamenting. And everyone's going to start lamenting, walk out of the class, think maybe I should climb to the top of this building and jump off. As following the instructions in this class, everything's bad, and I'm bad. So better to end it all now. So that is also developing a certain desire, certain perspective on things. Or let's all try and make our lives even more opulent and enjoyable. Let's learn how to cook. No more khichdi for breakfast, only halwa flowing with ghee and raisins. And everyone, yeah, this is a good class. I'm inspired. Or we can have a class about washing our hands before we eat, and even chewing the food while we're eating it. It's not so exciting, materially speaking, but it gives the opportunity to actually think about Krishna. And if we actually focus our minds on Krishna, then that becomes exciting, because Krishna is full of ecstasy and full of love. And therefore, in the material world, the less exciting things become, or the less we become dull due to the material existence, the more we become conscious and yet neutral, then the more we have an opportunity to think about Krishna. Now, Aditi has mentioned in the previous verse all kinds of things we can get from Krishna, which we can also get from hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam will inspire us in so many different ways. At the end of the chapters, even the other chapter, or the end of this chapter, if one hears the Srimad Bhagavatam with rapt attention, then all one's enemies will be vanquished. We think, wow, this is great. I'm going to really pay attention now. Watch out. I'm looking at you. Just a little concentration on my reading the Bhagavatam, and you're finished. You're history. And that may be true. Because if Krishna says it's true, if Srila Vyasadeva says it's true, of course, here we find that Diti will vanquish the sons of her sister, Diti. But Krishna is not going to be so quick to just say, yeah, let's go get the armies, I'm the head of the army. No, Krishna is much more intelligent. He'll vanquish Bali Maharaj with intelligence. Krishna doesn't necessarily just throw a Sudarshan chakra. My devotee wants me to kill his enemies. Throw my Sudarshan chakra, and you see heads rolling everywhere. No, Krishna is very thoughtful. He fulfills the desires of his devotee, but sometimes in ways that the devotees aren't really so expecting so much. In any case, Krishna will fulfill our desire, but Krishna is fulfilling everyone's desires, not just our desires. So Krishna knows how to adjust everything so it comes out perfectly. The thief is desiring, I just really want to break into that man's house and steal all his money. And the man is in the house, I'm just praying to Krishna, please prevent the thief from coming in my house and stealing my money. So Krishna has to adjust everything. Both have desires. Both are not necessarily the same. Krishna has the same weight. Here we find that if one is actually a devotee of Krishna, Krishna gives more weight to the devotee's desire, a real devotee. One who is actually devoted to Krishna, then Krishna gives more weight. And if one is as a deity in the mode of goodness, there's more weight. But if one is actually a pure devotee, then there's even more weight. Just like Prabhupada. They asked Prabhupada, could you show us your mystic powers? Because it's understood that if one becomes a pure devotee, he gets all mystic power. So Prabhupada said, I have no mystic power to show you. If you have any mystic power, then just look, see my disciples, my followers. Before they were all meat eaters running after the opposite sex, gambling and taking intoxication. And now they become devotees of Krishna. He said, that's my mystic power. So that's the greatest mystic power. We can float a city in the air, but so what? There are so many things floating there anyhow. And the city will have to come down after some time. We can manifest so many different wonderful things in material energy, but after all, it's just the material energy. But if we can actually change someone's heart, that's even much more difficult. To go to a prison and to make the prisoners into saints is extremely difficult. It's probably not the best audience for sainthood. My dear sir, I'd like you to become a great saint. What is your qualification? Well, I killed 15 people. Cut the heads up, sat on them. Really? I think I'm going to have a tough time with you. But if you can change such a personality into a devotee, then certainly it's more glorified than if you just take, a person who's raised in a Brahminical family who's been chanting 16 rounds since his birth. Therefore, Lord Nityananda wanted to glorify Lord Chaitanya by changing Jagai Madai into devotees. Narada Muni is glorified because he changed Mrugari the hunter into a great Vaishnava. Haridas Thakur converted a prostitute into a Vaishnavi. So in that way they become glorified. That way they show the potency of devotional service. So that kind of desire is all auspicious. All these other things, vanquishing your enemies, we find that Bali Maharaj will be vanquished, but he eventually becomes Indra. What kind of vanquishing is that? You banish Bali Maharaj from the heavenly planets, but he pops right back up after some time. So what kind of victory is that? Besides that, Indra, even when he's in the heavenly planets, it's not that everything goes according to his plan. Often he gets attacked, even as the king of heaven. Vritrasura appears, stomping on the demigods, making juice out of them. Then Bali Maharaj, then Indra has to flee because sin personified chases after him. He has to live in a lotus flower, the stem of a lotus flower, for hundreds and thousands of years without any offerings, starving to death because everyone's afraid of, hey Indra, here's some prasadam. Hey, go away. Don't give away my hiding place. Sin is looking for me. So it's not an easy position. So you get back, you become the king of heaven again, and then you get all the responsibilities of being the king of heaven. Anything goes wrong in the universe, they all blame you. Still Aditi, because she's a demigoddess, and the demigods are generally supposed to rule the heavenly planets. Therefore, Krishna has arranged his pastime so that she has an intense desire. Intense desire means she fulfills this Payovrata ceremony, I think it's for 1 week. Of course, 1 week of the demigods is a lot more time for us. But finally she'll get back, and Krishna will arrange it in such a way as to diplomatically get rid of Bali Maharaj and give him a better position than that of Indra. So he banishes Bali Maharaj from the heavenly planets and gives him a better position than he had in the heavenly planets, and reinstalls Indra back into the heavenly planets again. Because of Aditi's desire, and because Krishna knows how to arrange everything perfectly to fulfill everyone's desires. So in our little lives here, or big lives, however you want to see, that if we can somehow or another develop the proper desires, then we can have our lives at least successful. So we have to watch our minds, see where it's going, and see whether it's actually in line with Krishna's desires, and how far away is it from Krishna's desires, and then try to bring it back to Krishna's desires again. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudyam apapavishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve seshanti matnoti nakama kami. The difference between a materialist and a spiritualist is that a spiritualist is awake to what he's desiring. And a materialist, he just captures whatever he likes, not what Krishna wants as a desire, and goes after it. Therefore, a person who's not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into an ocean, which is always being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not a man who strives to satisfy such desire. So, as soon as we start hankering for something in the material world, alarms should go off. Ding, 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 ding. Emergency. You're getting into trouble. You're going to fall off the cliff of spiritual life into the pit of material existence. So alarms should go off when we start desiring material things. And one should become aloof from them. Not that, oh my God, how can a great devotee like me think about something like that? That's not possible. Something's wrong with the process. How could this be possible? Krishna, you made a mistake. Why am I thinking about that? No, one has to become undisturbed, because if we think we're great personalities, we're beyond material existence, then certainly we'll get into difficulty. I remember one time Prabhupada came, he gave a lecture in Boston, 1969, on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada's disappearance day. And after the lecture, he went to his room and he stood on the front of the bed and fell back and rolled over and said to his servant, I pray to Krishna every night to please protect me from Maya. So as soon as we think we're beyond Maya, Maya is my servant, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble, because Maya, she won't become your servant, you'll become Maya's servant. Maya will say, I want to become your servant. Sure, yes. Now just do this and do that and I'll serve you. So one has to be careful when the thoughts, hankering for something or lamenting, come into the mind. we shouldn't be disturbed. We should just let them flow through. Just like a snake. If you see a snake on the ground, you try to grab it, it'll bite you. And if you run away from it, it'll also bite you. If you stand there, it'll just slither by and go away. On the other hand, that's only possible in the long run if we're actually absorbed in Krishna consciousness. If one is thinking about Krishna and is aware of Krishna, then the result is that even some desire comes, it won't be seen as so significant. And if some desire comes, we think it's very significant, then we should think about Krishna, and it'll actually become relatively less significant compared to Krishna. The thought of going back to the spiritual world and living there forever in full bliss and awareness is certainly superior to anything we can get in the material world, including a kingdom, even a Brahmaloka, which gets vanished or vanquished in the course of time. So if somehow or another we add Krishna, then these thoughts will be able to come and go, and then we can actually focus our attention and give our love to Krishna and make our lives more and more successful, not from the material point of view. From the material point of view, people think we're utter failures. They've given up all material opulence, they've given up all material aspirations and destinations, and they're just chanting mindlessly again and again the same words again. The materialists will see it in a different way. Just like Kolagavekar Sridhar, he was chanting day and night the holy names, but he was poverty-stricken. He was selling bananas in Bengal. No one buys bananas in Bengal. If you walk down the street in Bengal, bananas will hit you in the head. They'll fall off the branch. Why should you buy them? Still, he was making a living selling bananas, banana leaves, banana flowers. So he was, practically speaking, the only thing he had to eat was bananas. So he was living in a hut, didn't even have a proper roof on it. The rain was leaking in through the roof. But day and night he was chanting Hare Krishna. So did his neighbors think that he was a great devotee? No, they thought, this guy's a rascal. At night he's screaming something. They can't understand what he's screaming because he doesn't worship Durga, therefore he's suffering from hunger pains. Durga's not giving him any food to eat, therefore he's screaming at night due to his hunger pains. So their idea was, let's take his hut with him in it and throw it into the Ganges. Because they didn't understand that he was an exalted devotee and that his opulence was beyond anything temporary, material opulence. He was living in the spiritual world with Krishna and his pure devotees. Therefore, we have to be able to judge what's the difference between something temporary, as Diti here, although she's a devotee, still her desires are focused in on her sons because she's a mother of the demigods. But it's temporary. She knows it, therefore she feels a little guilty too. And we should focus our desires on something Krishna conscious. And if it's something semi-Krishna conscious, then we might get away with it, but we won't feel completely enthusiastic. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Here is a question from Vala Viknapen, and she's asking, Hare Krishna Maharaj, my question is, are Mayavadis above the three modes of material nature?
Are the what?
Are Mayavadis above the three modes of material nature?
Aruya Krishchena Param Param Tada Padanyana Nadrita Yushmar Angreyaha. It is said that Avishuddha Buddhaya, their intelligence is covered by ignorance. So how can they be above the three modes? Their intelligence is covered by ignorance. And even if they somehow or another, they rise up to the Brahman platform, Krishna says, Mam chayo vyavacharena bhakti-yogena sevate Sagunan samititaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who is engaged in unalloyed devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once achieves the level of Brahman. So real Brahman is to be situated in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it's a temporary situation. So it's not material and it's not fully spiritual either. Mayavadis, they might, by worshipping Krishna, rise up to Brahman, but it's not a completely spiritual situation. Yes.
There is another question from Avadutarai Prabhu, and he's asking, Vishwanatha Chakravarti writes, one who faithfully hears and glorifies Krishna's rasa dance is described as learned, for he does not foolishly doubt. How can Krishna prema appear if material lust is present?
Is that who? I don't know, where. What's the question?
The question is, I know this is more advanced for the more advanced. But I'm interested what you would say on this argument.
Well, hearing and describing the rasa dance, to actually hear and describe it properly, one has to be situated in pure goodness. Otherwise, it's like licking the bottle of the jar of honey. One can hear about the rasa dance without any rasa. One has to actually be engaged in Krishna's rasa. One has to have the qualifications of bhava, bhava, anubhava, sattvika bhava, vyabhichari bhava, and sthayi bhava to actually be able to relish the rasa dance. It was way beyond even nishta, liberation, ruchi, and asakti. Therefore, we can hear about the rasa dance because we should know about what our ultimate destination is. But our hearing about the rasa dance is not the same thing as the gopis hearing about the rasa dance. Difference between having spiritual senses and having senses covered by the illusory energy. It's like trying to eat a big feast and having your tongue with a glove on it. The feast is there, but we can't taste it as long as we have a glove on. Okay, thank you very much. Khwala. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.